Germany might not feel warm and fuzzy at first, but with the right mindset and practical steps, it's one of the most financially secure places to build a life in Germany. If you're tired of instability, cynicism, or just want a fresh start, Germany might just be your best financial move. I moved to Germany exactly 10 years ago, and having been through various stages, student life, being on a limited contract, then getting German permanent residence, and eventually becoming a German national. The one thing that has significantly improved my life is embracing sincerity in communication. Coming from the subcontinent, we have a culture of being very polite. Our conversations are usually indirect, with loads of tangents and many structures depending on who we are speaking with. With elders, office colleagues, people in general, and especially with children, we speak one way. With siblings and friends, we speak another way. And with close friends, we have a totally different way of speaking. It's not just the style, it's an entirely different set of vocabulary. In Germany, on the other hand, clear and direct communication is valued, especially in the workplace. You have two forms of speaking, the formal and the informal. The formal mode of communication is used with people you aren't familiar with or people in general. Some colleagues and bosses fall into this category as well. The informal mode, however, must be offered to you by the other person or you have to offer it to them. I'm no linguistic or cultural specialist, but I think this offering of informality is quite unique to Germany. If someone offers you the informal form and you accept it, this means you can address that person informally. But if you continue to use the formal structure, which might come from your cultural background where it is seen as respectful, it can actually be taken negatively. If you are on the informal terms with someone and you keep addressing them formally, the other person might take it as a sign that you want to maintain a distance. A typical German mindset would be this person has been offered the informal mode of communication, yet they are still using the formal one. That means they don't want a closer relationship. But that may not be your intention at all. You just want to be respectful, maybe because there is a 40-year age difference or because they are your boss. So it's important to understand that your way of showing respect can be perceived in a very different way in Germany. In the workplace, understanding this cultural norm of clear and direct communication can help you build trust with your colleagues, perform better in job interviews, and negotiate salary or contracts more effectively. It can be a bit difficult to apply this, especially if you are new to Germany, but you have to be honest and straightforward in your communication. So avoid overly polite or vague language because it can and most likely will be misinterpreted. For example, if your manager gives you a tight deadline and you respond with something like, "I'll try my best" or "I'll see what I can do," they might assume you're fully committed and expect results, even if you weren't sure you could deliver. In Germany, it's better to say clearly, "I won't be able to meet that deadline, but I can deliver it by Friday instead." That kind of directness is respected and helps set realistic expectations. I see so many foreigners struggling with this. Their need for politeness is actually hindering their professional life as they try to work between the lines, thinking that if they say no or respond negatively, it will hurt their reputation. In many cases, the opposite is true. Another thing that's directly connected with communication is assumptions. Most expats assume that they will be told how things work, but most Germans assume that you already know how it should work. I know this doesn't make much sense right now, but I'm sure you'll understand it in a minute. When you come to Germany as a student or join a company, you will be told these are your tasks or these are the mandatory classes you have to take. And many things are just assumed to be understood by you. For example, did you know that according to the Working Hours Act, you are legally required to take a break after 6 hours of work? I did not know that when I started my first job as a student. I worked 6.5 hours for days, only to find out that those 30 minutes each day weren't being counted at all. Thankfully, I noticed this after a couple of days and asked my supervisor about the missing half hour. My supervisor had assumed that since this is a common knowledge in Germany, I would have known that after 6 hours of work, there is a mandatory 30 minutes break. After 9 hours or 9.5 hours, if you include the first break, there is another 15-minute mandatory break. And in most professions, you're not allowed to work more than 10 hours in a single day. All of this is assumed to be known, even if you're an expat. There are dozens of things that fall under these kinds of assumptions. In one of my first meetings, I waited for my supervisor to assign tasks explicitly. I didn't realize that in German work culture, it's common for responsibilities to be communicated indirectly or even left for you to pick up based on the discussion. So when I didn't follow up or take initiative, it was seen as a lack of interest or responsibility. My supervisor later told me that in Germany, me, proactivity is expected. If something falls within your area, you're supposed to take ownership without being micromanaged. That shift in mindset made a big difference in how I was perceived at work. Your mileage may vary, but I found this in total contradiction to the direct and clear communication that one is told to expect in Germany. On one hand, people are very straightforward in giving feedback or sharing opinions. On the other hand, when it comes to delegation or next steps, there's often an unspoken assumption that you'll take initiative and just know what to do based on the context. It's like there's a hidden layer of expectations behind the explicit communication style. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced this kind of contradiction too. And please hit the like button if you're getting value from this video, and consider subscribing. So here are 3 things I do to communicate and understand more effectively in a German work environment. Number 1, I never assume anything. For example, in one of my early projects, a colleague told me we'll need to finish the documentation soon. I assumed that soon meant something like next week, and I prioritized some other tasks. But what they actually meant was in the next 2 days. Because I didn't clarify, I ended up delivering it late and was told that I should have checked the urgency. Now, whenever I hear something vague like soon, later, or ASAP, I follow up with something like, just to clarify, do you mean by the end of this week or sooner? It avoids stress and I know what's expected of me. I do the same when I assign tasks to other people. Number 2, even if I think I've understood something, I ask, did you mean this? For example, during a team meeting, my manager said something like, we'll be presenting this in the next group meeting. I thought that meant the same thing would be presented. But what he really meant was that the data was good, but it still needs to be refined before it's shared with the whole group. So instead of nodding along, now I say things just so I'm clear, these slides are enough, or do you think we should add something else? 9 out of 10 times that extra question saves me hours of rework and shows that I'm actively listening. Number 3, I always summarize action points at the end of a conversation or meeting. For example, at the end of a conversation where tasks are assigned, people often just say, okay, sounds good, and leave. Early on, I did the same until I noticed that tasks were slipping through the cracks because I wasn't remembering what I was supposed to do. So now I wrap up with a quick summary. Alright, so I'll create the draft by Thursday, you'll review it on Friday, and we'll submit it on Monday. Does that sound right? This has saved me from so many misunderstandings and makes me look more organized and dependable. These 3 habits might seem very small, but they've helped me navigate the unspoken rules of communication here in Germany. And more importantly, they've helped me build trust with teammates and supervisors. And you can use these tips in any situation. For example, as a student with a professor, with other students during a project, even with your landlord when discussing things about your apartment. As an expat in Germany, life is already hard. Don't make it even harder with just assuming things. It's better to ask again and be a bit annoying than to assume and be known as incompetent and unreliable. In this video, I share some very important things that might be useful. So thanks for watching, bleib gesund, and I'll see you in this video.